Trichotillomania. It's a form of OCD. I'll just never forget. I was 12 years old. I pulled out a single strand of hair once, and it just felt right. It felt like a release. And for the rest of that summer, 12 years old, I strand by strand pulled out every single piece of hair on my head. I was very efficient. There were days where I would spend 10 hours a day pulling out my hair and just lose time. Always strand by strand. So I had pulled out the bulk of my hair between June and September of that year, which was 1999. I was 12. I didn't understand what I was doing. And I would lie and say, like, I don't know what's happening. My hair is just falling out. Because at that age, you don't want people to know you're crazy. I was lying to the doctors, telling them I didn't know how, I didn't know why. They diagnosed me with alopecia. Part of the treatment was 10 shots of steroids in my scalp once a week. I just went with it. Whatever, as long as they don't know I'm crazy. And then a kind doctor pulled my mom aside and said, I actually really think that she has trichotillomania based on these different things, and referred us to a wonderful psychologist, psychiatrist who understood a lot of the ins and outs of OCD. But it's something that I still struggle with to this day. Forever, it was this huge part of my life. This daily struggle to have hair and force myself not to pull it. So I actually made the decision to just shave my head, because I only have ever had a problem with pulling out my head hair. Trichotillomania can extend to any hair on the body. A lot of people do their lashes. Some people do their pubic hair. Hopefully you're disposing of them properly, but you never know. But I was just fully focused on head. So I finally just had this one logic moment where I was like, why don't I just remove the trigger? It was 10 years ago when I shaved my head and moved to wigs. Ever since then, it's just sort of like an afterthought. You fall into these very specific behaviors. Yeah. I would loop the hair twice around my fingers, so it had to be long enough to that. I'd pull it out at the root. It's got a little cuticle on it. I would rub the cuticle against my top lip and then throw it away. Other people do the exact same thing. Either rub it on their lip or eat a small piece of it. It's a very common feature of trichotillomania. There's something deep in the brain chemistry, because the experience is not subjective. Especially the more people you talk to who have it, the more you realize, oh my God, you think that weird thing? I think that weird thing too. I also have obsessive compulsive disorder. So I've got my record player of old hits, of thoughts. I've always really disliked babies and children. I don't want to touch them. I'm afraid of them. I don't want to hold a baby. I had this weird fear forever that I would all of a sudden have a seizure and throw it into the air, which has never happened. And I once read an article about the 7 most common obsessive thoughts of people with OCD, and on it was accidentally hurting a baby. I never felt so seen in my life. Me, girl. Me. And so there absolutely is something that's purely objective about it that has to come from evolution, genetics, brain chemistry. I come from a long line of people who have struggled with depression, anxiety, addiction, anorexia, all manner of things. I cannot remember a time in my entire life, as young as my earliest memories, that aren't marred by anxiety, which is so interesting because I lived a great childhood. My parents are amazing. There was no nurture thing that triggered it. It was 100% brain chemistry, evolution. And for me, a personal reason why I will never have children. A, I'm gonna toss that baby into a ceiling fan, and then B, it's just not fair to visit that on another generation. Like, I don't want to say that, like, I'm cured, it's over, because it's not. It's never over. Yeah. That's just not how mental health works. Yeah. But I try and live in the comfort of the spiral of, like, it gets better, it gets worse. It gets better, it gets worse. And that's the wheel of life.